And I believe you have the honors.
Oh, I do, Chris. According to numerous reports, an activist investor, which is a name that I love. I'd love to have that moniker someday. Activist investor.
I think you are. I think you're an activist podcaster.
Oh, certainly an activist podcaster.
I'm a lazy podcaster.
Or
whatever the opposite of activist is. But anyway.
All right. So Scott Ostfeld, who is the partner and co-portfolio manager of Janus Strategic Investments, is urging Macy's to spin off its e-commerce business, a la Saks Fifth Avenue's move earlier this year. So he is citing the precedent that Saks set and believes Macy's should take a similar approach, and that believes that their standalone operation could be worth as much as $14 billion against Macy's current $6.9 billion valuation. Now, Chris, if I was a retailer, Macy's in this particular case, I would that, but that's cool. Thank you. I would be going to you and the A&M Consumer and Retail Group. You'd be the first call on my bat phone to figure out if this is a smart move or not.
It's like the Seinfeld episode. I'm first on your speed dial.
Speed dial. Yes. Well, Kristin Kohler Burrows of the A&M Consumer and Retail Group is going to put you on the spot this week. Because she also
Chad got you last week. Kristin's got me this week. All right.
That's right. So Kristin wants to know, is there a scenario where a retailer should consider splitting off their e-com business?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I would say, generally speaking, and I want to get back to the Macy's part here too, but I think generally speaking, I would say it's not something I would advise if you're a traditional bricks and mortar retailer conceiving of this idea, because I think the two are so inextricably tied. Although I think there are probably some angles, and I know you've got some cool thoughts on this too, where you could explore that type of situation, but I don't think it's ever I was trying to think of it. I don't think it's ever like an all or nothing situation where I would spin off the whole thing. I might split off a chunk. And I'd also only probably do it if I had a very strong brand reputation. Like I was doing my own products, which I don't think Macy's, is really doing. So like for me, like with all due respect to Mr. Ostfeld, I think this story is about the most ridiculous thing
Mr. Ostfeld, AI, activist.
Activist investor. Yes. I think this story is like one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. On the one hand, I like the audacity of it, right? Like the guy's bold. He said it's worth $14 billion, but Macy's isn't worth a damn anymore as a physical store idea. So like you could say, okay, yeah, maybe we just put all our eggs in the e-commerce basket, see what happens, spin it off, see what comes of it. I get that in principle, but I don't think it will work because, like I said, Macy's is so inextricably tied as a brand to its store operation. And so like, I just don't see how you can pull that apart in the minds of the consumer. The analogy for me, if they were to do this, would be Toys R Us.
Okay.
Because Toys R Us is just the department store version of Macy's, honestly. They sell the same stuff that everybody else sells, which we talked about on the show a whole host of times. And look at how much trouble Toys R Us has had getting off the ground. They tried to do the deal with Target, like that fell flat on its face. They're now trying to do a deal with Macy's, which is interesting when you think about the irony in this story. Right. And that's probably not going to work either. You can't just bring a brand back to life that has such a connotation with stores. And the valuation, like, is ridiculous. Like Kohl's is $6.9 billion, which is a better retailer, in my opinion, than Macy's. Right. So to say that you're going to pull this apart and create $14 billion of value, yeah, I want some of whatever you're smoking, Mr. Ostfeld.
Well, I think that the problem for me was they're referencing Saks, and Saks isn't having a good time doing this either. I mean, I've spoken to people at Saks, and you're still faced with being head to head with people who are running a legacy retailer. You're just not set up to run an e-commerce business separate. And when you do spin off Macy's, there's nothing unique about Macy's that makes it competitively advantageous for that company to go online. Like, what are they going to do to stand out? I think, Saks has even tried to they brought in Sebastian Gunningham onto their board, who's a former Amazon guy, to even when you bring in the brightest and most brilliant minds in e-commerce to try to run your business like this, it's still coming head to head with these legacy issues. And, I think your point is dead on. The company that I thought of when you mentioned Toys R Us was actually like Who, What, Where at Target. I was just talking to Chris Ressa about this. Like, that brand to me could stand on its own as an e-commerce site or spin off of Target and have physical presence. I don't think that this is something that Macy's is ever going to be able to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I love that. Like creating like a microsite almost, in terms of like something that you are already carrying and creating a standalone entity of it to promote it even more. I don't even know that you spin that off either, though. Right. I still think you keep that kind of inside inside baseball too with what you're doing. So I think it's hard to find examples of where this would work. And, the other proof that I put in the pudding lastly, I think would be, you see so many of the digitally native brands trying to either get wholesale relations or going into physical stores. No one's really giving it a go for the most part, unless you're like a marketplace, like an Amazon or some setup like that,
right?
Where you're just truly standing alone. You can count on two hands the number of standalone e-commerce players that even worked. So why would this work for Macy's? I just don't get it. I don't understand it.